Hi everyone, hope you're doing great. This is Maro. So today I have a Hizen review. It's more of an overview than a full review, and I did have a chance to get the ship. I played a few games in her, and I'm primarily going to compare her to her predecessor, Amagi, and her peer, Izumo. I'm leaving the Musashi out. That's a baby Yami, and it's in a different league altogether. I'm also not going to be talking about the dockyard event and how expensive it is to get this ship. I think everyone knows. Everyone knows everything that they should probably know about that in terms of what it represents. So with that, let's get into it. So Hizen, new Japanese Tier 9 battleship. I guess, in my opinion, comes in the game as a continuation, or even better, a bridge between Amagi and Yamato. And when I say that, I mean in terms of design. When you look at how the ship evolved, and Amagi follows more of a typical design with the pagoda and so on. And then you had Izumo, which was this ugly duckling, a stepchild in terms of how it looked. And then obviously had Musashi and Yamato. And I think Hizen is almost a missing link between the two, between Amagi and Yamato. But unfortunately, I think designers didn't really want to give the ship everything that should have gotten. So she got shortchanged in a few places. So let's start with the hit point pool. This is the first area where Hizen gets shortchanged. So Hizen's hit points come to 75,900. So call it 76,000. Izumo gets 79, so that's 3,000 more. And Amagi has 66. So Hizen's 10,000 up on Amagi and 3,000 down on Izumo. Unfortunately for Hizen, she only gets 3 heals out of the box versus 4 for Izumo and Amagi. And once you get the superintendent skill, you increase that by 1. So Hizen has 4 in total versus 5 for Izumo and Amagi. So the fact that Hizen has 1 less heal means that once you account for all in hit points or health, Hizen comes out to around 118,000 versus 134 for Izumo. So Izumo 16,000 more, and Amagi comes out to 113,000. So that's around 5-6,000 that Hizen has more than Amagi at tier 8. So unfortunately for Hizen, not so good. Moving on to armor. Both Hizen and Izumo have the same armor belt, 356 millimeters, which is a step up on Amagi. She only gets 254, so definitely Hizen has better armor protection. Where I think Hizen suffers in comparison to Izumo, and it's similar to Amagi, is that the top decks are all 32 millimeters in case of Hizen. And Izumo actually gets the central part of its top deck to be 57 millimeters, which helps, especially with the fire from the cruisers. And Hizen doesn't get the same protection. Now, what Hizen does get, which is kind of similar to Amagi, is the back icebreaker in a way, and it's 229 millimeters. Izumo has the same thing, but Izumo's is a lot lower and doesn't necessarily provide the same amount of protection. Now, Hizen's citadel remains long from the front turrets to the back turret and slightly above the water. So not much difference, I think, in comparison to Izumo and Amagi. And then the armor belt kind of fits around the citadel. It makes it appear as if there was a turtleback feature, but I think because of the angles inside, you don't really get that protection. You just get the armor on top of the armor mostly. Now, in the past, it was argued that, if you're brawling in an Amagi, as long as you're kind of not turning, you minimize the chances of being citadeled because of the armor protection. Given the similarity in the structure of the armor around citadel and the armor belt, the same may potentially apply to Hizen, but I didn't really have a chance to test that, so be forewarned. So overall, in terms of armor, Hizen definitely a step up on Amagi. However, doesn't get everything that Izumo has, and that's primarily the top deck protection in the center. Moving on to guns, Hizen gets 12 of them, 4 turrets, 410 millimeters, similar to Izumo and Amagi. Hizen gets better firing angles, 30 degrees front, 31, so very good for angling. The issue with the guns is reload time. Out of the box, 38 seconds. With the main battery mode, you bring it down to 33 seconds. That still doesn't compare that well to Izumo, 26, and Amagi, 30. I know what Wargaming is doing here, right? It's like, okay, 12 guns, 9 guns. We have to make adjustments for the DPM. So when you look at the DPM, Hizen comes out at 140,000 HE versus 133 for Izumo. So you're like 3-4% up on Izumo. In comparison to Amagi, it's 140 versus 130. Okay, so another, like, I don't know, 5-6%. And then looking at the AP, you get 274 for Hizen versus 264 for Izumo and 250 for Amagi. Okay, so you're saying, okay, well, DPM is a little on top, but other adjustments that were made don't really make up for this just slight difference in DPM. With the sigma values, Hizen gets 1.7 versus 2.0 for Izumo and 1.8 for Amagi. So it's worse than Amagi's, and it's, a lot worse than Izumo's. So you get this slight adjustment in DPM, but less precise guns to begin with. And then on top of that, Hizen's guns have less AP pen. They're around 80 millimeters less pen than Izumo's guns, and they're only maybe around 20 millimeters up on Amagi's guns. And then on top of that, you also have the slower turret turn. So Amagi's guns 36, Izumo's 39, Hizen's 43. And this is with the captain scale. So you put all those things, 3 things together, and unfortunately, I think in the gun department, Hizen comes out worst off. For example, let's assume Izumo is facing Hizen. It's sitting at 45 degrees to Hizen, and taking into account Izumo's armor belt and citadel armor in the front part, at 45 degrees, that comes out to 683 millimeters of effective armor. Hizen's guns can only pen that from 7.2 kilometers. Now, I looked at the World of Warships fitting tool data, and I looked at the game models to get the armor values. And now let's assume the situation is the complete opposite. Hizen is sitting at 45 degrees versus Izumo. So Hizen gets 666 millimeters of effective armor. Izumo's guns can pen that from 11.1K. So 7.2K versus 11.1. That's like almost 4K difference. Now, Amagi does not compare well at all. If Amagi is sitting at 45 degrees, Hizen can pen her from 14.8k, and Amagi can sit Hizen from 7k. So huge difference. Hizen, again, a big step up from Amagi, but comes out short when compared to Izumo. In terms of concealment, Hizen doesn't even get a break here. It's the differences are tiny, but still. Hizen 1366, Amagi 1358, Izumo 1351. I mean, does it really matter? No, but clearly they didn't want to give Hizen an advantage here. Speed comparable to Izumo, 28 knots, and slightly slower than Amagi at 30. Turning circle, pretty much the same, 880, 870, 890. Rudder shift, on par with Amagi, if not slightly better, 17.1, 17.3. And Izumo, less maneuverable at 19.7. And then we have AA, and here again, Hizen gets shortchanged, gets the same AA as Amagi pretty much, slightly worse than Izumo. So AA is not good to begin with, and then doesn't really Hizen doesn't get a step up in the AA department. So you put all of this together, and what you have is a ship that's better than Amagi, but it's not as good as Izumo. I think the nerfs on the guns, right? The reload speed, so you get just slightly more DPM that's less consistent and it has less pen value, so no good. In terms of hit points, let down. In terms of the decks, I mean 32 millimeters versus the central deck that Izumo has, it's kind of a letdown. Doesn't get up on AA either. So all around, it's not a bad ship. It's an okay ship, but it's not as good as its Tech 3 peer. Now, in terms of gameplay, it's going to be different. It's going to be more of a Amagi gameplay versus static gameplay that Izumo excels at. So that may be slightly more fun. But I don't think that the ship had to be nerfed as much. I think they could have given her the same Sigma as Amagi, 1.8, so that's incremental. They could have given her that extra heal, and they could have given her that deck, and maybe just a slight increase in the A values. I don't want to make the ship like a lot more powerful, but I think maybe the goal was for her not to be as good as Izumo, but why? I mean, this ship is a link between Amagi and Yamato. You may as well make her a decent ship. I mean, I know it's a premium ship and so on, but Izumo is pretty strong for her tier. So, you know, it's almost seems to me as an unfulfilled potential as far as ship is concerned. Could have been better. So, with that, I leave it up to you to decide how much grinding and how many doubloons you want to spend on this ship. I wish you the best of luck on high seas. Maro out.